Hello friends, welcome to the EduSite Network. Our today's topic of discussion is part of our series on microeconomics, and today's topic is utility analysis. And for this discussion we have with us in our studio Dr. Rajiv Shukla, who has been steering this series on microeconomics. He is the coordinator for the PhD program in the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, IIFT, New Delhi. He has over 7 years of research and teaching experience and has taught economics to graduate and postgraduate students. And his areas of specialization are macroeconomics, Indian economic policy and international trade. And with this introduction, I would like to welcome sir to our EduSite studio. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you so much. And I request you to begin our today's lecture on utility analysis.
Thank you. Hello friends. In last lecture we had discussed about the scenario of international policies, international concepts, microeconomics concepts, microeconomics principles, and we had started the microeconomics series, and under this microeconomics series we are going to discuss today utility analysis, which is one of the very basic factor of microeconomics, and everyone wants to know what is the meaning of utility and how it compares, how it measures to another aspects of microeconomics. So under this series, now let's begin with utility analysis. It's a very basic and a very important feature of microeconomics. So as last concluded lecture, we had discussed in last slide what is the meaning of utility and how is it possible to measure the utility. And as I said, utility is just a satisfaction which you received sometimes of consumptions, not only for eating or the drinking, but also some seeing a scenery or some very gracious scene. So it is also called a consumption. So now what is the meaning of utility? If you see the definition of utility, which is clearly emerged in objective terms, utility may be defined as the amount of satisfaction. Where you pointed out the amount of satisfaction, and with this word we are going to explore how is it possible to utility can be measured. Either is it not possible to utility can be measured, it's a part of introspection, एक मनोवृत्ति है जिसको आप महसूस करते हैं, so it's a part of introspection. Nobody can be measured in terms of a unit and something else. So for the part of definition, in objective terms, utility may be defined as the amount of satisfaction derived from a commodity or services at a particular time. Whatever be services and commodity in a particular time you have consumed or you are consuming, so whichever be the satisfaction or the utility you received at that time, this is called a utility, or this is called a satisfaction in other words. But how the amount of the satisfaction or the amount of the utility, is it measured, or with the help of some the concepts is it possible to measure the utility? In earlier slides we discussed about the principles of microeconomics. Now we are going to some other principles of microeconomics under the utility features. So here you can see over there, utility may not be confused with the usefulness and as it purely subjective satisfaction derived from the consumption of a commodity. Every product and service has a capable to satisfy you according to your wants. Everybody is very much aware that we have unlimited wants, and we have a wants with the rank of wants. Suppose if you require a particular glass of water at a single time, then at a single time you are required money to go somewhere. So this is a different type of wants and different type of satisfaction. If the wants, if you require a glass of water and then we give you a money, then the satisfaction is not in appropriate manner, because your desired want is to a glass of water. In other words, if you desired a money and then I will give you a glass of water, then your satisfaction is not in appropriate manner. So satisfaction is derived from your particular want at a particular time. जिस समय आपको जिस वांट की आवश्यकता की संतुष्टि की जरूरत है, अगर वो पूरी होती है, then you are satisfied. Now the question is there any possibility to parameter or to measure the utility which you get through the drinking of water or through receiving the money at a particular time. So with this approach, we have two approaches which our economics emerged: cardinal and ordinal utility. There are two types of utility which we have seen in our economic scenario in the economic literature, where we have two utility approaches. One is cardinal and the second one is ordinal. In a universal term which we discussed, कि अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं in a very general manner, is it possible to measure utility? Everybody says, which we are few aware about this fact, कि what is the call of satisfaction and what is the matter of utility. Everybody knows that utility, उपयोगिता, whichever we consume, it not be measured. अगर मैं पूछूं कि कितना satisfaction मिला, कितनी संतुष्टि मिली, you can't be measured. But our economics suggested a way to measure the utility with the help of two approaches. First is cardinal and the second one is ordinal utility. In cardinal approach, economics suggested that we can measure utility with the help of some parameters, with the help of some units. As you aware कि बहुत सारी unit होती हैं, मात्रक होते हैं, तो how is it possible or how is it locate a possible unit of measurement of utility? So our economics suggested a separate measurement of utility is called util. उन्होंने एक मानक दिया, one of the greatest economics Marshall, और उन्होंने एक मानक दिया util, कि with the help of util parameter we can measure utility and we can give the measurement. Either you can consume a 1 util, 2 util, 3 util, 4 util at a particular time to consume a particular commodity or the services. So Alfred Marshall gives a parameter to measure of utility under the form of cardinal approach. Cardinal utility, the number 1, 2, 3 as you see in your slide, are cardinal numbers. For example, the number 2 is twice the size of 1. So in the same way, the number 4 is 4 times the size of number 1, and undoubtedly if you can identify which one of the number gives you more utility, undoubtedly everybody says is the number 4. And Alfred Marshall, as I said, Alfred Marshall gives a util parameter, so we can say we consume a particular commodity and we get the 4 util satisfaction. So with the help of util, we can numbering of all the utility what we get in a particular time. But in a practical manner it is not possible. अगर एक मानक दे दिया गया और उसके बाद ये बोला गया कि it is a called of parameter of utility and we can measure the satisfaction with the help of this util, and you can identify either we eating an apple and we say now the particular apple gives me a 4 util satisfaction. So how this 4 util comes that way? Is it possible कि only 4 util you can get? Some of the people may question mark, how is it possible to get only 4 util? Maybe you get 2 util or the above to 4. So there are some criticism of this fact that it is not possible in a particular manner or the practical manner कि utility can be measured. But Alfred Marshall gives a particular unit to measure the utility under the cardinal approach. Alfred Marshall developed cardinal utility analysis. According to cardinal approach, as I said, utility can be measured in the form of ordinal utility. The second aspect of the ordinal utility, the number first, second, third and fourth are ordinal numbers, and these ordinal numbers are ranked or ordered. Here one of the other economics suggested that cardinal approach is not a very relevant or the very appropriate to measure their utility because it can't be measured in a numerical figure. The other economics suggested, Hicks and Allen, that ordinal utility is a quite appropriate measure to know the measurement of utility in comparison to cardinal utility. He condemns that cardinal approach is not a very appropriate. Why? He suggested that we can't be measure utility in numeric figure. Either the Alfred Marshall gives a particular unit to measurement of utility is called util, but Hicks and Allen condemn this approach, and he suggested that in a particular manner, in a practical behavior, we can't be measure the satisfaction and the utility. So he suggested कि with the help of ordinal approach we can give a rank of order of particular commodity, and with the help of this rank order we can identify if we can rank a apple on first, if we can rank a second one fruit mango second, if we can rank a third one fruit is third, then we can identify on the rank of first an apple. With the help of ranking order we can identify कि apple is one of the fruit which we can get a maximum satisfaction with the help of this rank order. So with this approach Hicks and Allen suggested कि with the help of ordinal utility we can rank all the consumed product or the services, and with the help of this rank order we can identify कि which one product or the services where we get the maximum satisfaction. So दोनों ही approaches के अपने criticism थे, so but ordinal approach is little bit appropriate in terms of measurement of utility कि with the help of ordinal approach we can identify कि which one of the product or the services where we get the maximum or the higher satisfaction. So Hicks and Allen use ordinal utility approach for analyzing the consumer behavior, and this analysis is known as indifference curve analysis. In next slide we are going to discuss about the concepts which our economics suggested under the both approaches. So in the next slide you can see over there utility analysis divided into two parts. One is cardinal utility analysis, which Alfred Marshall suggested कि can be measured with the help of utils. Law of under this approach two concepts there, law of diminishing marginal utility, and the second one is law of Equi marginal utility. On the other hand, J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen suggested कि ordinarily cardinal approach is not appropriate and utility can't be measured but compared as rank, and under this approach he derived an indifference curve analysis. So we are going to discuss about these concepts under the cardinal utility analysis and the ordinal utility analysis. So first one is, let's begin, law of diminishing marginal utility. And what is the meaning of law of diminishing marginal utility? It's a very relative to our general behavior. If you can see this law, it is a very psychological fact that when a person acquires more and more unit of the same commodity during a particular time, utility he derives from the successive units will diminish. In other words, the additional satisfaction derived from the additional unit of a commodity goes on decreasing, and it is fact. It is fact in a practical behavior. If you can choose a particular commodity and the unit of the same commodity during a particular time, the utility derives from the successive unit will diminish. In other words, the additional satisfaction derived from the additional unit of a commodity goes on decreasing. So it is a fact we can apply on a normal behavior कि जैसे जैसे किसी चीज की अधिकता होगी आपका हर एडिशनल यूनिट से मिलने वाला यूटिलिटी वो कुछ कम होता जाएगा. One of the Gaussian economics was the first economics to explain the law of diminishing marginal utility and the law of Equi marginal utility in 1854, and Gaussian first second law of consumption in 1871, and 1890 Marshall in his principle of economics developed the analysis in refined manner. So the cardinal approach, as I said, कि Marshall gives us a util parameter. So Alfred Marshall in 1890, Marshall in his principle of economics, which is very well aware of his books, developed this analysis in a refined manner. And the first before Marshall, H.S. Gaussian was the first economics to explain the law of diminishing marginal utility. And Alfred Marshall defines the law of diminishing marginal utility. In other words, the additional benefit which a person derives from given increase of his stock of a thing diminishes with every increase in the stock that he already has. It is a very clear, the same words which we discussed here. Alfred Marshall said the same thing. The additional benefit which a person derives from a given increase of his stock when the particular stock increase one and two other units, your utility which you conceive from the last unit and from the successive unit, it is quite differ, and the successive unit which you get the utility is little bit decreased in earlier one which you get the previous one in units. So here you can say the additional benefit. What is this means? Additional benefit when you consume a successive unit or when you consume a additional unit, and when you consume a additional unit, then you surprise that your utility can't be increased, it decrease in comparison to previous unit. सामान्य तौर पर जब आप किसी चीज की अधिकता को बढ़ाते जाते हैं, उसके प्रति आपकी उपयोगिता भी घटती जाती है. सामान्य तौर पर भी किसी भी वस्तु या सर्विसेज में यह चीज अप्लाई होती है. सो व्हाट इज द एजम्पशंस ऑफ दिस लॉ? मान्यताएं इस नियम की क्या है कि ड्यूरिंग ये जो सिनेरियो है, ये जिस तरीके से सक्सेसिव यूनिट्स बढ़ती जाएंगी और आपकी यूटिलिटी हर सक्सेसिव यूनिट्स, हर एडिशनल यूनिट के साथ डिक्रीज होती जाएगी, इस पर्टिकुलर लॉ को फॉलो करने के पीछे कुछ अजम्पशंस हैं. विद दैट ऑन द प्रेजेंस ऑफ दीज अजम्पशंस, दीज लॉ विल बी वैलिड. फर्स्ट वन, the law of diminishing marginal utility is based on the cardinal measurement of utility. In the cardinal measurement which we discussed, we can measure the utility with the help of util parameter. Second one, utility is measured in terms of money. The law assumes that the marginal utility of money is constant. Utility is measured in the terms of money. You can say in the form of rupees, in the form of numeric value. Third one, there should not be any time gap. This is very important assumptions. There should not be any time gap between the consumption of one unit and the other unit. Suppose the law suggested, if you go to previous slide, the law suggested when a person acquires more and more unit of a same commodity during a particular time, and the assumption is that there should not be time gap between the consumption of one unit to other unit. You can't be, if you can consume a particular unit, suppose if you consume a one chapati in a particular time and then you consume a second one chapati after a half an hour gap. So this law is not valid at this point because there are time gap between the consumption of same commodity. जो धीमे धीमे जिस तरीके से आपके सक्सेसिव यूनिट्स, व्हेन यू कंज्यूम अ मोर एंड मोर यूनिट ऑफ पर्टिकुलर commodity, then your utility diminishes in every single successive unit. So this law is only follow where there is not a single time gap at a particular time. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि आपने पर्टिकुलर समय में जिस कमोडिटी का आपने कंज्यूम करना शुरू किया है और आफ्टर गेट थोड़े गैप के बाद देन यू कंज्यूम अनदर यूनिट और द एडिशनल यूनिट where the utility differs. Maybe utility increases because at the same time you satisfied your wants. Suppose आपको भूख लगी, then you consume one chapati, then this chapati gets a more satisfaction because you are hungry at that time. Then second one chapati gets a little bit decrease utility in comparison to previous one because you आपका जो भूख है वो थोड़ा सा कम हुआ. Third one chapati gives you a little bit or more decrease in previous one. Then you consume a more and more chapati. At that time, the total utility is the maximum and the marginal utility is 0. So there is no single time gap between the consumption of one unit and the other unit. Fourth one, assumptions: the unit of commodity are homogeneous. There is the first one we discussed that there is no time gap, because if there is time gap, the utility maybe differs and the law is not valid at this situation. The other one, the unit of the commodity are homogeneous. You should not be consume a one unit a very small and the second one or the successive unit is a very large. So it differs the utility scenario, or it differs this law. All the size of the particular commodity or the particular bunch of commodity or the particular piece of commodity is in regular or the homogeneous, एक जैसे होना चाहिए. If you consume chapati, the first one chapati is not a smaller one, or the second one chapati is not a much larger one. It is all about a homogeneous units. Because if you consume at a particular time, if you consume a homogeneous units of the particular product, then this law implies at a particular time. Fifth one, the consumer is assumed to be a rational economic man. He has the knowledge about the market. So here are the assumptions, and with the presence of these assumptions, this law may be work. Where in the law we have discussed about the two facts. One, when you consume more and more unit, the total utility increases and the marginal utility decreases. How? When you talking about the total utility, then we say total utility is increasing at every successive unit when you consume 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5 units. But in the form of marginal utility, it decreases at every successive unit, and after that, when the total utility is maximum, the marginal utility is 0. What is the total utility meaning? Total utility means the total satisfaction attained by the consumer from all the units of a commodity taken together in the consumption of a certain thing at a time. Whatever you consumed at a particular time and whatever a unit you consumed, suppose you can consume 5 chapatis in a particular time and you get a satisfaction near about 50 util, then you can say the total utility is 50, is the total satisfaction attained by the consumer. And total utility is increasing but at a low rate, or you can say at a diminishing rate, घटती हुई दर से बढ़ता है. When you consume a first chapati and then you get suppose 10 util or 20 util, then you consume a second chapati, then the total utility may be a 15 util, not 20. So total utility increases but at a diminishing rate. Second one is marginal utility. Marginal utility is the additional utility. As I said, marginal means an additional unit comes, is the सीमांत उपयोगिता. So marginal utility is the additional utility obtains for an additional unit of any commodity consumed or acquired. It is measure the difference between the utility of the total units of the stocks of consumption of a given commodity and that of consumed 1 unit less in stock considered in symbolic terms. And if you see in a particular formula form where you can look over slide, marginal utility X is equal to total utility X minus total utility X minus 1. Marginal means, in a simple word, marginal when an additional unit comes, and when an additional unit comes, what is the impact on the total satisfaction, what is the impact if the additional unit comes in production sector, what is the impact on production in additional units comes in a utility form, marginal, what is the impact on satisfaction. So marginal means a सीमांत जब इकाई बढ़ जाती है तब आपके टोटल सेटिस्फेक्शन पे क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है, either increase or decrease is not a matter of thinking, but something impact when the additional unit comes. With the help of diagram and figure, we are trying to know how these total utility and marginal utility works under the diminishing law of utility. First, we can explain the law with the help of table. In coming table, you can see consumer goes on increase X goods and utility derived from additional goods declining. If you can see this table where consumer goes on increase X goods, the additional utility derived from additional X goods declining. The law is clear from the following table. We can observe that as the unit of commodities increases, the marginal utility derived from each successive unit tend to diminish. Diminish means when it goes to in a negative form. And the total utility factor इंक्रीजेज एट डायमिनिशिंग रेट, घटती हुई दर से, बढ़ती है, टोटल यूटिलिटी बढ़ती है जैसे जैसे आप कंज्यूम करते हैं, बट घटती हुई दर से, टिल द सिक्स्थ. When you see the table, then it clearly emerges what we are discussing, where you see first unit, total utility 10, marginal अभी कुछ नहीं. When you consume second unit, total utility increase 18, marginal utility 18 minus 10, 8. When additional unit comes, what is the impact of total utility? So here is 8. Third unit consumed, the total utility increases but at a diminishing rate 24. If you can relocate, the first one 10, second one 18, which is the gap is 8, and the third one is 24. Total utility increases but in a diminishing rate. How much are 8? Is a 6. Now 4, 28. Now fifth 30, maximum utility, which he clearly means now the your satisfied your wants may be a satisfied position. आपका जो भी इच्छा थी वो अब सेटिस्फाइड है, इसके ऊपर आप कंज्यूम करते हैं, देन इट हर्ट्स यू और इट विल नॉट वेरी मच लाइकली टू यू इफ यू गेट मोर कंज्यूम्ड ओवर 5 यूनिट और द 6th यूनिट. It may be harmful to you. So here you can see over table where the total utility continue increasing up to 6th unit when you consume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but at a diminishing rate, and the marginal utility, which is a very important feature here, घट रही है, डाइमिनिश कर रही है, 8, 6, 4, 2, and when the total utility is maximum, where the marginal utility is 0. This is the basic assumptions and this is the very main features of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Most of the competitive exam, in most of the competitive exam, the concerned question asked several times कि what is the relation between the total utility and marginal utility. So this is a very important question where all the competitive exam may be asked in very papers ki what is the difference between the total utility and the marginal utility. Sometimes the question may be asked in the form ki when the total utility is maximum, what is the situation of marginal utility. So when the total utility is maximum, the marginal utility is 0. And when you continue your consumption, when you consume more and more units after get a 5, when the total utility is maximum, then you consume a 6 unit, then you consume a 7 unit, the total utility is now decreasing. Here you can see over table, when you consume over a 6th unit, the total utility which is increasing in the first one to 6th one with the diminishing rate, now after get 6, if you are continue your consumption, it is 28. It is a purely a decreasing scenario. And the scene of marginal utility, it is negative. So here you can look over this table and you can identify कि when you consume a unit of particular commodity in a particular time and you consume a more and more unit, so total utility is increasing with diminishing rate and the marginal utility is decreasing. And when the total utility is maximum after get the 6th unit of particular unit, then the marginal utility is 0. And the same thing we can apply over figure. Here you can see the same figure with the help of this table where the blue line show total utility curve and where the pink line show marginal utility curve. In x-axis we can frame x goods and in the y-axis where the utility can express. Where you can see in the first unit you can consume 10, in the second unit where you can get near about 18, is below 20, and when you consume a third, 4 and 5th unit. But at the last point 6th, you can see over there at 6th unit the line MUC line intersect, is the 6th point is the intersect point MUC where the MUC is 0, and when you draw a line the same point of TUC, when you find a maximum point which is one of the maximum point of TUC curve where it clearly emerges that TUC is maximum and MUC is 0. And when you continue your consumption, then you can see over figure the MUC is is in minus figure, is the seventh one is the minus figure, and TUC after get the maximum point is decreasing. So here the slope of curve is self-explanatory that the identically TUC is increasing with the diminishing rate. The slope of cover, the slope of figure is purely indicates here. The slope of figure is purely indicate that the TUC is increasing with the diminishing rate, and that after get the 60 units consumed, it is maximum, and the MUC curve is clearly indicate that it is clearly decreasing, and after get 6 point it is in minus figure. So this is the call of law of diminishing marginal utility. With the help of diagram and table explanation, we can identify how it works. Now, what is the relation? As I said, what is the relation between the total utility and marginal utility? There are 3 points. When total utility increases at diminishing rate, marginal utility diminishes. When the total utility is maximum, marginal utility becomes 0. When total utility decreases, marginal utility becomes negative. These are the 3 features, or they are the 3 differences, there are the 3 relationship between total utility and marginal utility. जब टोटल यूटिलिटी बढ़ती है, मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी घटती है. जब टोटल यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमम होती है, देन द मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी बिकम्स 0. और जब टोटल यूटिलिटी डिक्रीज होती है, प्योरली इन अ फॉर्म ऑफ डिक्रीजिंग, देन द मार्जिनल यूटिलिटी बिकम्स negative. Now we switch from the next concept, law of Equi marginal utility. Here we discussed law of diminishing marginal utility, जिसको हिंदी में कहते थे सीमांत उपयोगिता ह्रास नियम. Now we are going to discuss the law of Equi marginal utility. इसको गॉसन का सेकंड नियम भी कहा जाता है. The law of, what is the meaning of Equi marginal utility? Equi is near about a sense of equal. Here the law of equal marginal utility explains as how to consumer distributed his limited incomes among various commodities. Suppose you have a very limited amount and you have alternates of 2 or the 4 commodities, but you have a very limited amount. So how can distribute your limited amount in some of alternatives? Which one and how you can get a maximum satisfaction? So with the help of this law, we can see that the person or the consumer, how is it possible he distributes his limited incomes among the various commodities. He will spend his income in such a way that the last rupees spent on each of the commodity gives him the same marginal utility. The fact is there कि how is it possible कि suppose you have a limited amount of money, suppose 5 rupees, and you have alternate 2 commodities, suppose a particular A or B, and the units of A or B. So how can you spend your money in that way where you can get a maximum satisfaction? So therefore this law is known as the law of Equi marginal utility. मतलब equal, आपका satisfaction कम कहीं ना हो, आप इस तरीके से अपने amount को locate करें उन particular commodities में जहां पर आपका satisfaction maximum बना रहे. In order to get maximum satisfaction out of his limited income, the consumer carefully weigh the satisfaction obtained from each rupee that he spends. When the consumer goes to spending to his amount, when he carefully watches where he get a satisfaction and where he get a satisfaction, a little bit decreased satisfaction in comparison to previous one. So if he thinks that a rupee spent on one commodity has greater utility than spending it another commodity, he will go on the spend his money on the former till the satisfaction derived from the last rupee spent in the 2 cases equal. वो तब तक spend करेगा जब तक कि वो marginal utility उसकी बराबर नहीं हो जाती. The same law we are trying to know with the help of some table, and before we go to the table, there are some assumptions of the law. In the same features we discussed about the law of diminishing marginal utility. Here are some assumptions of the law of Equi marginal utility. What is the measures? This law is also under the cardinal approach, where we can measure the utility in numeric figure. So though law which we discussed in the cardinal approach, one is law of diminishing marginal utility and the second one is here law of Equi marginal utility. So what is the assumptions? the utility is cardinal measurement. The marginal utility of money remains constant as same in the law of diminishing marginal utility. Consumer has a limited amount of income and he spent the entire amount. This is the assumption. You can't be save a single rupee. You have to spend all the money whatever you have at that time. So consumer has a limited amount of income and he spent the entire amount. The wants and the habits of the consumer remains constant. Suppose at a particular time you have only two alternatives. You have to spend your money in a particular two fruit, suppose apple and mango. And at the same manner, if you want to buy your rupees at the third one fruit, it is not possible under these circumstances. This law suggested at a particular time the wants and the habits of the consumer remains constant रहेगा और उसी पर उसको वो खर्च करना है. Where with the help of limited amount of income, where we can get the maximum satisfaction from the units of alternative what we have right at particular time. So the consumer is rational, he tries to get maximum satisfaction, and the consumer spend his income in small quantities while purchasing the commodity. So these are assumptions which we follow when we discuss the law of Equi marginal utility. ये मान्यताएं अगर होंगी तो then this law is valid. What is the law and what is the with the help of table, and how can we explain this law in a very example mode? So the law of equimarginality has been stated by Marshall as follows: if a person has a thing which can be put to several uses, he will distribute it among the uses in such a way that he has the same marginality in all. The same wording here which we have seen in previous slide, the Marshall quoted, if a person has a thing, अगर किसी आदमी के पास एक ऐसी चीज है जिसको वो several uses में लगा सकता है, then the particular consumer distribute it among the uses in such a way that it has the same marginality in all. So the law can be explained with the help of some numeric example. Suppose a consumer has 5 rupees. With the help of some example, we can identify how it works. Suppose if a consumer has a limited amount, only 5 rupees, which he wants to spend on two types of commodities, suppose name X and Y, so that he obtains maximum utility. In coming table, which we show the marginal utility of successive rupees of income when spent on X and Y. जिस तरीके से मैंने बताया कि अभी आपको अंडर दिस लॉ आपका लिमिटेड अमाउंट ऑफ इनकम इस तरीके से खर्च करना है वेयर यू गेट द मैक्सिमम सेटिस्फैक्शन. So with the help of table, we can try to identify how is it possible and how this law works. You can see over there are two units, there are two commodities, one is X and one is Y, where we get marginal utility X and marginal utility Y. Anyone can ask maybe at that time ki why we put a 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, 0, 4, 6, 8. Anyone can ask to you. So you can say because this law is in work under the cardinal approach, where we can get the satisfaction or the utility in numeric figure. So we draw this table with the numeric figures 10, 8, 6, 4. Here you can say marginal utility X is 10, marginal utility Y 10, 8, now 8, 6, 6, 5, 4. Total units in terms of rupees you have only 5. So how can you spend in a very particular frame where you get a maximum satisfaction? You can see your first unit you can spend over X commodity, where you get a 10 util satisfaction, a maximum satisfaction where you get after the spending a first rupee. In other words, if you want to spend, and if you look to here over the table, when you say ki which is one of the highest utility satisfaction in the table, so marginal utility X, where you get a 10% only for a 1 rupees. So first one you go with 10 and you spend your rupees, first 1 rupees on 10. Then you identify which one the utility scenario is get the maximum. Now you identify commodity Y, 8 satisfaction. So second 1 rupees you spend on 8. unit. Third one 8, 6, 4, 6, 5, 5, 6, and you spend your whole income in a such a way where you get a maximum satisfaction. You can look over there. You never be compare a low satisfaction to spend when you spend your money. When you spend the first 1 rupees, you get 10 satisfaction, 10 util satisfaction. When you 2, 8 satisfaction. 8 satisfaction. There are not a single term is highest to 8 when you go to spend a third one or the second one unit. So the law which he clearly indicates that the person spend his money where he in a such a way where he get a maximum satisfaction. The same thing we can draw our figure also. In coming figures we can here draw a equi-marginal utility curve. And before we go ahead, then we know this table, what this table suggested in the figures in bracket shows as to how the consumer spent is 5 rupees on 2 types of commodity. Thus the total utility obtained from X. अगर आप total utility को देखेंगे in the marginal utility of X where the total utility is 10, 8, 6 is equal to 24 and from Y 8, 6 is 14. In this way the consumer spent his entire income on X and Y in such a way that the last rupees spent on X and Y gives the same marginal utility. So the consumer gets a maximum satisfaction. With the help of this scenario, you can spend your money in a very such a finest way where you can get a maximum satisfaction in the total satisfaction. Where is the total satisfaction of X is 24 and the Y is 14, where you spend your 5 rupees, total amount of 5 rupees. Now in the figure you can see over there same figure with the help of the table. Money expenditure and quantity of demand is shown on an X axis and the marginal utility derived from the commodity X and Y is shown on Y axis. Y is shown by the curve of MUY and marginal utility of both the commodities are equal at 6 units. The consumer is in equivalent by purchasing the combination of 3 units of X and 2 units of Y and he obtains the maximum total utility at that purchase. अगर आप इस कॉम्बिनेशन को कुछ बिगाड़ देते हैं, सपोज इफ वी गो टू प्रीवियस स्लाइड, अगर इस कॉम्बिनेशन को कुछ चेंज कर दिया जाए, देन द कंज्यूमर नेवर वी गेट अ मैक्सिमम सेटिस्फैक्शन और द मैक्सिमम टोटल यूटिलिटी. आप अगर 1 रुपीज 4 पे खर्च कर दें, सेकंड 1 रुपीज 6 पे खर्च कर दें, थर्ड 1 रुपीज 10 पे खर्च कर दें, तो this equation never be satisfied or never be obtained in a such maximum satisfaction way. This is one of the Equi point where you can where the consumer get the maximum satisfaction. The same thing happened in the figure where this unit or this equation shows the maximum satisfaction. With this equation you can say if the consumer consume 3 units of X and 2 units of Y, then he obtains the maximum total utility at that purchase. Combination of 3 units of X and 2 units of Y, which is one of the best combination of spending his money. Now the other segment which we discuss here, consumer surplus. The concept of consumer surplus originally devised by the Dupit, a French engineer, in his paper on the measurement of public works in 1844, and Marshall introduced Dupit relative utility concept as a consumer's rent in his pure theory of domestic value. So what is the with the help of consumer surplus, what will we get in a practical behavior? We can see कि whatever we are going to purchase, whatever we are going to pay for a particular commodity and what we paid, there are little bit difference कि what we are going to pay कि एक अनुमानित कीमत हमारे द्वारा और what we paid, and this is the difference called a consumer surplus. You can see Marshall named it as consumer surplus in the 3rd edition of Principle of Economics in 1895, where consumer surplus Marshall suggested the prices which a consumer pays for a commodity is always less than what he is willing to pay for it, so that the satisfaction which he gets from its purchase is more than the price paid for it, and thus he derives a surplus satisfaction which Marshall calls consumer surplus. So instance of commodities from which we derive consumer surplus in our daily life are like a salt, newspaper, postcard, matches, etc. So consumer surplus, what is the meaning of consumer surplus? What the consumer wants to willing to pay and what he paid, this is the difference between the consumer surplus, and this is the difference what the Marshall calls consumer surplus. What the consumer willing to pay and what he pay to consume the particular commodity. Consumer surplus can be defined as the difference between what a consumer is willing to pay and for a commodity and what he actually does pay for it. Here you can see over the table, price willing to pay is 10 and actual price is 4, and consumer surplus is between the difference of price willing to pay and actual price is 6. The same unit, second unit 8 to 4, the consumer surplus is 4. Third unit 6-4 is consumer surplus is 2. What is difference between price willing to pay and actual price? And the same scenario is the total unit is 20, total price willing to pay is 28 and the 16 and the 20, the consumer surplus is 12. With the help of diagram you can see consumer surplus is represented diagrammatically in figure DD. Is the demand curve for the commodity. If OP is the price, you can see if OP is the price and OQ unit of the commodity are purchased and the price paid is OQ. So what is the consumer surplus here? OQ into OP is equal to area OQRP. DD is the demand curve, where if OP is the price and the commodity OQ unit of the commodity are purchased, money he is prepared to pay for OQ, but the OQ unit of the commodity are purchased and the price paid is OQ into OP. Now the area OQRP is, you can say, is the amount of money which he is prepared to pay for OQ unit is OQRD. And OQRD area is therefore consumer surplus is, if we difference between OQRD minus OQRP is equal to DPR. So here is the consumer surplus scenario, what the consumer willing to pay and what he does actually pay for the particular commodity. So here we discussed about the cardinal approaches concept, law of diminishing, law of equi-marginal utility and law of consumer surplus, and what is the meaning of consumer surplus. Now we switch our second one, which is ordinal approach, analysis of consumer behavior, how is it developed with the help of ordinal utility approach and how the consumer behaves under this approach. And as we discussed in earlier slide, that in this area we will be discuss about the fact of indifference curve analysis. What is the indifference curve analysis and how it is located or how is it linked with ordinal approach? In ordinal approach we know that we can't be measure utility in numeric figure, we only measure the utility in the rank form. So indifference curve analysis, as you discussed about the fact of law of diminishing and law of equity, the same pattern, but under the ordinal approach, where we can rank only, utility can't be measured under this approach in a numeric figure. So indifference curve analysis developed by Edgeworth, famous economist. It was later preferred by J.R. Hicks and R.J.D. Allen, and indifference curve approach is also known as ordinal utility approach. And consumer expresses their utility in terms of preferences. The word is preferences is indicated that in this area we can't be measure utility in numeric figure. We can rank only our preferences under this approach. So consumer expresses their utility in terms of preferences, not in terms of quantity. And assumptions of indifference curve: a consumer is assumed to buy any two goods in a combination. There are assumptions which we follow when the particular law works. A consumer is assumed to buy any two goods in combination. A consumer can rank the alternative combination and compare their level of satisfaction, and he prefers a combination providing a higher level of satisfaction, which is one of the very important feature here. A consumer can rank the alternative combination and compare their level of satisfaction. If the consumer satisfied with the particular level of satisfaction, and if we get the more level of satisfaction, then he switch then he switch his rank from the previous one. So in indifference curve, when we will discuss about all the indifference curve with the help of diagram, where we can also identify how it works in the consumer behavior scenario, and how consumer prefers when he get the maximum satisfaction with the help of their preferences or the rank case. So consumer is rational and his choice are transitive. The consumer behavior is assumed to be constant throughout the analysis. So here are the assumption where we assume that all the things are present when this law works. In next lecture, we will discuss about this fact, how it works and how this law is very much useful under the ordinal approach, and how we can know about the consumer behavior under this approach. So today, thank you very much for this listening of very sincerely and carefully. Here is your today lecture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for the very lucid and engaging lecture of yours, and the students would greatly benefit from this, as you already mentioned. So with this, I would like to thank you on their behalf for coming in, talking to us about our series on microeconomics. So friends, stay tuned in. We have more lectures in line. Of course, there's our lecture tomorrow also as part of our series on microeconomics. So keep watching. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you so much, sir.